Hey y'all, and welcome to the next series of lectures in the Practical Packet Analysis course. Here we're going to be focused on basic Wireshark analysis techniques. So we've talked a little bit about installing Wireshark and how to customize it a little bit to your needs, how to move around the layout windows, how to capture some packets, all the great stuff you need to do to get started. And now we're really going to start getting into the features you'll use when you're actually going about the business of trying to answer questions. So you have some type of problem you're trying to deal with and you need to answer some questions, get to the bottom of what's happening, and we're going to do that in this section in Wireshark by exposing and examining a couple of those features that are really relevant to the analysis process. Now we're going to go through a couple different things here, and this section is of course going to be mostly demo based. First, we're going to start with an example of how to find packets. Wireshark has a really great feature that allows you to search through different areas of the packet capture using different formats, so you can find the occurrence of a particular string or a particular sequence of bytes or some particular type of field you want to find to see if there's any packets that contain a certain type of data. So we'll go through an example of that. Next, I'll define endpoints and conversations. Wireshark defines those in a specific way, and I'll show you how it provides an ability to identify the total number of endpoints or conversations, see some statistics based upon those things, and how to then go in and filter based upon that so you can focus in on a specific endpoint host or a specific conversation. Certainly something I find myself doing quite a bit. Next, we'll talk about protocol hierarchy. So this is a statistical feature in Wireshark that allows you to see all of the protocols present within a packet capture and how they relate to each other to kind of get the lay of the land. After that, we'll talk about name resolution, something we've delved into a little bit already when we talked about name resolution for MAC addresses, and we'll continue to go into that a little bit further. We talk about name resolution for ports, name resolution for hosts as well. So we'll go into all the different intricacies of name resolution, how to set up your own manual name resolution, and some of the pitfalls you need to be concerned about. Name resolution isn't always a good thing, and I want you to be aware of that too. Finally, we'll talk about packet streams, and this is the ability within Wireshark to basically combine the payloads of several packets into a single view and view that data. One of the most commonly used features in Wireshark is the ability to view a TCP stream, and you can also do UDP streams and HTTP streams, and the ability to view those streams is going to be really helpful in understanding the payload and packets and seeing that in a much more useful way. And it's also going to be helpful for us when we want to actually export objects out of Wireshark and maybe reassemble files we find in certain types of streams. So this is packet streams is what we'll end with, and it's one of by far the most important segments of this section on basic analysis. Now, before we get going into these demos, I want to highlight a little bit about the investigation process. And I want to put this diagram on the screen because this is the investigation process as it works in your mind. This is a diagram I rely upon heavily when I teach security-focused classes. But whether you're doing security or you're doing general troubleshooting, generally everything you're going to do is going to be based around the workflow you see on the screen here. And you'll notice this kind of mirrors the scientific method. And that's for a very good reason. In our minds, when we approach problems, we're generally asking ourselves a question based upon an observation we've discovered. We have an initial observation, we ask a question about that in order to move towards a conclusion, and during that process we'll generate hypotheses about the question, and then we'll go out and seek answers. And oftentimes you may have to ask and answer multiple questions in order to get to a conclusion. After all, in any type of troubleshooting or security analysis, you have this concept of perception and reality. Perception is what you believe happened at any given point, and reality is what really did happen. And ideally, perception and reality are the same thing, but often they're not. The analysis or investigation process is generally the process of bridging the gap from perception to reality. So it's moving from one to the other because we want those things to be equivalent. We want to know what happened, and if we can know what happened, that can tell us where the source of a problem is in most cases. So again, whether you're doing security analysis, general troubleshooting, trying to figure out the source of latency or whatever, you're generally going to use this same process. And I want to elaborate this early on because we're going to go through a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways Wireshark allows you to answer questions, but you're only going to be able to answer a question if you first defined the right question. So you'll notice I'm going to spend a lot of extra time as we go through talking about questions you might ask that would lead you to use certain tools. After all, it's only half the battle of knowing how to use the tools. The other half is certainly knowing when to use them. And that's going to be the important part of what I want you to take away from this class above all else. It's not just the knowledge of how to use these things, but when to use them, what makes sense there, and really how to understand the process of investigating system or networking issues, slow networks, or security issues. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into some of these demos and start looking at things like finding packets, viewing TCP streams, dealing with name resolution, and much more.